Hello Pixies, and welcome to or back to my channel. It's Zoe here, and today we have episode 3 of Are These Books Comparable? Now, the premise of this series is that I love a lot of books, but when I find a book I really love, I tend to want to go back and revisit that world, and I want the same kind of story but different because I don't necessarily want to reread the same book I had just read. Love rereading, but that's not the point of the series. With more popular books online, like A Court of Thorns and Roses or Lord of the Rings or what have you, there will be lists online like, if you like this book, then read this book. If you like this, then read that. But for books that maybe aren't as popular, those kinds of posts or videos don't really exist. However, on Goodreads, if you click on a book that you really enjoy and you scroll down, there is a tab called Readers Also Enjoyed. So that's kind of saying that, like, if you like this, you might like this. And I am going through that tab as well as maybe occasionally something else and trying to figure out, are these books actually comparable, or do people just tend to like this if they like that? So that is what I am doing with this series. And the book I have for this series, for installment 3, the book that we were trying to find a book is similar to, is actually my favorite book of 2024, and that is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. I love this book. Like, this is so beautiful. One of my all-time new favorites. I'm definitely going to be rereading this in the future, but also I would love to find a book that is like this book as well. And in this book, we follow Jack. And Jack is a bard, and he is from this island where the east and west sides are kind of at war with each other, but Jack has kind of left his island home behind, and he is teaching music to people who were once like him. But he is called back by his lord, so he returns to the island because he is called back because young girls have been going missing, and they believe that the spirits of the island are either behind it or might know something. And the reason they need Jack for this is because bards can possess a special ability where they can communicate with the spirits. So, and then we delve into the whole adventure, but Jack doesn't really have to figure this out by himself, but he also has to work out this mystery with his old childhood nemesis, Adira, who is the Lord's daughter. This is absolutely fantastic. The writing's beautiful, the story's beautiful. It's the perfect blend of plot, atmosphere, setting, and character. This is amazingly well done, and I would love to find a book that makes me feel the way this duology made me feel. Also, A Fire Endless I love equally as much as A River Enchanted, just so it's out there, but I can't really talk to you about A Fire Endless without just being spoilers, but just know that the ending almost destroyed me. It almost did it. So yeah, I love this book. And I'm really looking forward to what I can find writing-wise. And for this video, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I'm going to tell you the 3 books I have that can be comparable that I found on Goodreads. And I do have a 4th option in case one of these ends up being a DNF, or I really feel like we haven't found something that is like that. But I kind of doubt it. So I'm going to tell you the 3 books. So the first book I have on a digital book. This might be the first book I read, but I'm unsure. But I have A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. I have an ebook, not the audiobook, just an ebook. I'm not the biggest fan of audiobooks, but this is a retelling, I believe, of The Goose Girl? I think? Maybe? Not entirely sure. But we have that, and I know T. Kingfisher also has really beautiful atmospheric lyrical writing, so maybe the writing style will be really what's similar between these books. We also have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This one I feel like is a little bit more modern than A River Enchanted, but hey, we're gonna try it out. It is listed on there. And the last book we have that we're going to be reading in this video, unless things really don't work out and I pivot a little bit, is One Dark Window. In this one, I know there's a romance just like in A River Enchanted, but this is more of a gothic fantasy, but we'll see if any of these books fit the vibes. So the things I'm looking for in these 3 books for Are They Similar is writing style, character, plot, and atmosphere. If one of those things tick those boxes, that's great. And those are the criteria I'm figuring out if are these books actually comparable. Now that you kind of have heard everything I've had to say, let's just get into the first book. Why hello, this is the first update of episode 3 of Are These Books Comparable? And the book that I decided to start with was actually A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher, because like I said before, this checked out on Libby and I want to read it before that time limit is up. So that's the book that I started with. And from what I know, the story is that it is a retelling of The Goose Girl, but to be completely honest, I don't know if I've read that particular fairy tale, so I can't say. However, I have read another book that was a retelling of the Goose Girl, and that was Bloodleaf. The first book of the Bloodleaf trilogy, I believe, is also supposed to be a retelling of the Goose Girl, and like that book was just okay, and like I'm not getting like similar vibes at all. And I'm currently on chapter 23 of 36. I'm over halfway through, and being over halfway through, I have some thoughts on the comparison. So as with the other episodes of the video, I've gone back and reread a portion of A River Enchanted so just that I can remember some specific scenes, maybe get more of a semblance of character, the writing style, just a little bit of a refresh. Didn't reread the entire book, but in rereading that section and then reading this, I don't think that these books are comparable in writing style, which is what I was hoping for. The descriptions of both of these books are very, very different, so I was thinking that there aren't going to be plot similarities, and there aren't. And there's not really character similarities either, so I was really thinking the writing style was going to be like, if it was going to be anything, it was going to be the writing style. And like, I had to even double check with A River Enchanted. These are written nothing alike. A River Enchanted is very descriptive. You get descriptions of the world, descriptions of the people, of actions, what everyone's doing everywhere, and while it shifts perspective from person to person, you never feel lost in that shift, and because all of the perspectives are very, very different. And in this book, we also have a shifting perspective between Cordelia and Hester, but they're kind of in the same place dealing with similar things, so sometimes you can get a tad bit confused as to which one's actually talking, even though they're very different characters, but because they keep experiencing the same things, like there's a lot of overlap between their perspectives. And A Sorceress Comes to Call is very straightforward. Like, it's very tight. There's no meandering in prose. There's not a lot of descriptions in this. Like, every once in a while there's a descriptor, but it's just to really bring the image to mind, not to like paint you a picture, if that makes sense. And I'm honestly a little surprised because I remember really, really loving the writing style of Nettle and Bone and Thornhedge, and I don't think this book is written in the same way that those books are written, because I feel like those would be much closer comparisons in the writing style to River Enchanted. And like, obviously not every book author is going to write is going to feel the same, especially if they're talented, because if you are really talented, that means you can write a wide variety of things in a wide variety of ways. But to be honest, A Sorceress Comes to Call, I feel like is just missing that little something, that little je ne sais quoi that the other 2 books I've read by her have. And I'm kind of missing it. Like, I really am kind of missing it. However, the story is really intriguing. Honestly, a book that I think would be more similar between like plot and character-wise with what I'm getting so far is actually Threadneedle. I read that book last year. I had a reading vlog on it, and I really, really loved that book. I really enjoyed it. And the main character in that one, Anna, she is going through something absolutely terrible. She's being abused by her aunt in a very similar way that Cordelia is being abused by her mother. And it just makes me so angry. It makes me so angry. Books don't really make me cry very often, but boy, do they make me angry. And I won't say the writing style between those two books are completely the same. This one's much simpler, much more to the point, and this one more has a historical flair that the other one didn't. But to be certain that if you want to be comparative or to be like, is it the same? A Sorceress Comes to Call is much closer to Threadneedle than it ever will be to River Enchanted. I don't think between character, atmosphere, writing style, or plot that there's really any similarities between A Sorceress Comes to Call and A River Enchanted, which I'm sad to say. So yeah, I'll let you know if that changes, but I really don't think it's going to, but I'll just update you on how I feel at the end of the book. So yeah, that was my little update for you. I hope I explained myself well, and I'll see you when I have finished this book and have my final thoughts. I'll catch you later. Hello Pixies! It's time for another update because I have started One Dark Window, and I'm a bit over halfway through and I've got some thoughts. So One Dark Window, let's start with what One Dark Window is about. In One Dark Window we follow Elsbeth Spindle, and she is living in a kingdom where there is this cruel mist that is interlocking everywhere but the towns and the roads, and that mist belongs to a spirit of the woods, this wild spirit. She is the one who is causing this mist, and she is causing this mist because of the act of someone long ago that they call the Shepherd King, because he bargained with this spirit for magic, and this magic came up in cards, but then because of the magic in the cards, people were no longer worshipping her, and now this mist is everywhere. And also there is this fever in this kingdom, and if you contract the fever then you get your own magic, but that comes at a terrible cost of degenerating of the mind or body. So people who contract the fever are then killed, hunted down and killed. But Elsbeth, our main character, had the fever as a child, but it seemed like she displayed no signs of magic at all, but really she has magic connecting to the magic cards. And by touching one of those cards, she got a monster in her head. And so she's trying to keep this a secret, but then one day everything changes when someone who had attempted to rob her recognized her outside of it and knows that she has some sort of magic, or at least some sort of knowledge. And this puts her down a path that she never expected for herself. And this person is someone that she never expected to be with, because this is a person who hunts down people. This is a person who is employed by the king of this land, and also related to the king of this land. No one ever really gives a description of the book, I've realized, when they talk about this book, and that's fair, because what's on the inside cover of this book didn't cover as much detail as I just did, even though I don't really think what I said was spoilers, because we learn these things very, very close to the beginning. But I feel like what this book is described as is a little bit misleading, which is why I went kind of off the path here a bit to describe what I personally think is a good description of it, but maybe I'll edit it a bit, and if it seems a bit weird, it's because I realized that something was too much of a spoiler. No one ever says what this book is about because it's kind of complicated. It has a very, very cool magic system dealing with cards for the most part, and we have an interesting main character because she is not entirely her own person, as the description implies. This is very, very cool, very, very dark. I love a setting where there's like areas you shouldn't go, like wild woods or mist or mountains. It's like places that aren't safe for humans anymore because of magic. Like, I feel like we've seen this really quite a bit in quite a lot of story. Like Beast Among the Briars does it. For the Throne does it. Even things like, oh, what's it called? Uprooted has a similar concept. There's a lot of things that do it, even though I can't think of them all off the top of my head right now. But I just love that concept. Like, I love the concept of mist or woods or mountains or what have you that are just like kind of cursed because someone wronged them in the past. But in terms of A River Enchanted, this story is told completely through Elspeth's perspective. It's in the first person compared to A River Enchanted, which is told through multiple perspectives, and obviously told in the third person. Because of that, it's very hard to do first person with multiple perspectives. A River Enchanted is very, very well crafted. I think I should say that. And it's beautifully written. The writing is really lush and descriptive and lyrical. We get world building mixed with character, mixed with backstory, mixed with just everything in a seamless blend. One Dark Window does do a good job of blending in backstory with world building, with character, but the writing style itself is just not the same. It's not as lush, and that could be because we are being told it through the perspective of a person rather than a third person narrator, which is giving more description so we can really immerse ourselves in the world instead of seeing through the eyes of someone else. And she does describe things sometimes, but like it's not to the point where A River Enchanted is. And also the characters of this book are very, very different from the ones in A River Enchanted. Elsbeth, while a very interesting character, annoys me a little bit at times. And I don't know if it's because this book is YA. Is this book YA? So it seems to be some contention online whether this is young adult or new adult. Personally, I don't think new adult is a new category whatsoever. I don't think it's a category. I think things are young adult or they're adult. And people are just trying to make young adults like children, to be completely honest. And I don't think that's very fair to them. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and say this is a young adult book with slightly more mature themes than some people think is suitable for young adults. But those people are wrong. Anyway. This book is YA. A River Enchanted is adult. So there is, because it's the way our main character acts. Like, she's like 20 years old, which puts it around the young adult category. And she has very limited life experience, and she's kind of been living a hard life since the fever. And that is just not the way that the characters, and she acts in childish mannerisms sometimes, and sometimes acts in really mature mannerisms. And that's just not the way the characters are in A River Enchanted, because all of the characters, except for the literal children, but we're not told through things through their perspectives, they're adults, and sure, they can be petty, and they can do wrong things, and they can make bad choices, but they never act like this. There's also a lot of conversations. Things move very, very fast in this book, which also leans it towards YA. I think the pacing in A River Enchanted is really, really well done, because you're never feeling forced down certain roads, and when you really want to know what's coming next, you switch to another perspective. Things get intense, you worry about things, but it keeps the story going without doing these fake outs that I'm seeing in One Dark Window, where it's just like it cuts it off abruptly and then we're in a different scene, so we don't see the entire conversation or anything play out. I think it's kind of a fake out to do. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it's trying to build tension that shouldn't really be there. Like with supplying information or learning information where these things happen, and it happens very abruptly, and it's honestly really obvious that writer is trying to build tension where it's not absolutely necessary to build tension in that way, because you're just going to give it to them like almost immediately after anyways. And also I think the main character also acts a little bit childish in that she just met these people and they don't tell her everything right off the bat, because that's really, really hard to do. But then she gets mad when characters haven't told her everything even though they met her an hour ago. I'm not even kidding. That's an event that happened. Just really not realistic in that sense. So like writing style, character, all that is not fitting the vibes. I want to say this book is a great comparison for being like A River Enchanted. However, I am having a great time, and I can see a lot of people who enjoy A River Enchanted also enjoying this story if you really want something a bit different. So yeah, I'll let you know if I have any more thoughts, but now I'm gonna get back to reading this, so I'll see you later. I have finished One Dark Window. Actually finished One Dark Window a few days ago, but ignore that. And honestly, my thoughts haven't really changed that much since the last update, which is that these books are unfortunately not comparable. However, I do not believe this is a bad recommendation if you enjoyed the River Cadence duology. I believe that's what it's called. If you enjoyed A River Enchanted or Fire Endless, I believe there is a possibility you would enjoy this book. Although it might not have the same level of skill as A River Enchanted when it comes to technical skill, as in writing and character. It still really does deliver a fun story with mystery-ish plot lines. It has a really cool magic system, just like A River Enchanted has, and it also has a really cool atmosphere and setting that book also has. Is it done in the same way? No, but I don't think this would be a bad recommendation, but I also don't believe this has the same kind of vibes as A River Enchanted because of the reasons I listed earlier. But I also want to say that in terms of the story itself, I wouldn't call it all that similar, other than they're both trying to find things that have been lost. But that's the plot of a lot of things, obviously. But the very end of this book has a very similar ending to A River Enchanted. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. It's not exactly the same, but it does have some similarities to it, which I think is cool. And yeah, if you enjoy One Dark Window, I wouldn't necessarily, though, say, oh yeah, you need to read A River Enchanted, because they're very different feeling-wise. Do I think A River Enchanted is a great book and everyone should read it? Yes. But if you're looking for something like One Dark Window, I definitely wouldn't recommend A River Enchanted, if that makes sense. But at the same time, I don't think it's a bad recommendation. I had a thought as to what I would recommend if you enjoy this book, and I remember thinking it. If I can remember it, I will pop it up now. But I really did enjoy this book. Like, I really loved this book. I think this was a really good story. I'm excited to see where it goes. Unfortunately, it being given to me as people also enjoyed this book when they enjoyed A River Enchanted, and trying to see if they're actually comparable, made it a bit high expectations, because those books were my favorite books of 2024, obviously, which is why we're doing this as a video. So yeah, those are my final thoughts on One Dark Window. Sorry if they're a bit short. I feel like my update, I did a lot of thoughts, so sorry about that. I try not to do too much on the updates, but I feel like I fail. But that means the next book that I'm going to be reading, and that you're probably going to see in another vlog, is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This book, we follow Emily Wilde, as the title suggests, and she is a Cambridge professor, and she is studying fairy lore. And she's like a researcher, and I believe the fae are actually real in this world, or like have been proven to be real. So she decides to go on an expedition so she can compile an encyclopedia of fairies, as it might suggest. But she's not very good with people, and she has kind of an academic professional rival. And so she goes to this small town, I believe in one of the Nordic countries. I want to believe it's like in Sweden or something. I'm going to be honest, the premise itself does not lean into the River Enchanted thing, but we're gonna give it the good old college try. That was definitely a pun on purpose, I'm sorry. I don't have high hopes, to be completely honest, that this is going to be like A River Enchanted, but what can you do? When I have some thoughts, I will tell you them and see if I really butchered this story's explanation. I have officially finished Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and my thoughts on this book were that I absolutely loved it. I had such a good time. But is it comparable to A River Enchanted? No. it just isn't. Characters are completely different. Plots are completely different. There's like a tiny bit of a similarity with one plot point, but that isn't really like, it's not a gigantic component of this. It's just a small component is the gigantic component of the River Enchanted's plot. The atmosphere doesn't feel quite the same. The writing style are very, very different, even though they're both very, very descriptive and whimsical, but they're completely different. And the writing style is also leagues apart, in my opinion. I love the characters in here. They're nowhere close to being like the characters in River Enchanted. Very, very different. And everything. The thing that is the most similar, comparable, would be the atmosphere, because they're both very whimsical and magical and fresh and different, but in completely different ways. If you were looking for a book based off the atmosphere and like the vibe and some of the world building of A River Enchanted, I don't think this is a bad pick, but just know it's not going to be super similar. It just kind of gives off a similar vibe in that aspect, but don't expect anything else to be similar about this. That being said, do I think this is a bad pick because of that reason? No, but just know that it's not going to really be comparable or exactly the same. There's just a high chance that you will enjoy this book too. If you like A River Enchanted, there's a high chance you're going to enjoy this book. And that's that. With that comes the end of the video, so let's do a quick recap. A River Enchanted is a very, very special book that I honestly don't think any book is really like. It has a wonderful writing style that's very descriptive, but also very emotionally inflective. It has a great atmosphere with great world building, but not so much world building that you feel like you're drowning in it. And it just is beautiful and lyrical. It has great characters that act the way that they seem, who act in ways that you expect them to act based off the text. They never do anything that you're like, what are you doing? Because all the signs are right there for them to do those things. And the character dynamics work really, really well together, and the multiple points of view that the story's written really enhances the character experiences, because we wouldn't get the full story if we only followed one character, and it wouldn't be anything like the way it is. Was there anything else? And the plot is absolutely fantastic. And A Sorceress Comes to Call, I cannot say is a good recommendation. If you like A River Enchanted, there's nothing about it that is similar. It is a good book, but I don't think it's anywhere near as good as A River Enchanted, and I also don't think it's T. Kingfisher's strongest work, even though I did quite enjoy it. One Dark Window is also a very, very good book, which has a really cool magic system and has really great atmosphere. However, the characters can fall a little bit short, and I wish it was longer so we could see some more character developments, because the plot is doing a lot of things that are complicated, and there's always a lot happening, so some length could have benefited this book. However, if you really like unique magic systems, and which A River Enchanted has, and you really like atmospheric writing, and you like that, and you really like descriptions and strange worlds, then I would say One Dark Window, while it's not similar to A River Enchanted, you might really, really enjoy, and I don't think it's a bad pick if you're looking for that. And finally, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which I just briefly touched on. This is also a great book. I think it's really, really well done, but it's not the same as A River Enchanted. However, if you love like the atmosphere of A River Enchanted, then you're probably going to really enjoy this, especially those more magical other being type elements. A River Enchanted has spirit beings that control like how the world works on this island and everything, and their beings of pure elemental magic. And this has more of a real world take based off of existing stories with creepy Celtic based fae, where they are tricky and horrible and do bad things and are kind of self-centered, but all the same really, really interesting. Now, if you like A Sorceress Comes to Call, I would say absolutely try River Enchanted, because if you like any of these books that I mentioned, you haven't read A River Enchanted, I would actually highly recommend it, because I think it is something truly special that not a single other book is like, and I think it has mass appeal because it is so different and it is so special, and it ticks literally every single box that you could probably want if you are a fantasy reader. However, if you like A Sorceress Comes to Call, I recommend you read Threadneedle, because there's more similarities between what the situation that some characters are in, and characterizations, and some plot points. So you would probably really enjoy it. If you enjoy One Dark Window, there's a lot of books with really unique magic systems in it, and honestly, I would probably recommend The Cruel Prince. The Cruel Prince, or the Folk of the Air in general, if you enjoy that. And lastly, if you enjoy Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, I think you would really enjoy The Fairy Bargains of Prospect Hill, or even Half a Soul, because those have more of that historical vibe and characters that are way more similar and situations that are way more similar, with having that traditional fae element implemented. And yeah, that's it. I had a good time reading any of these, even though we weren't successful. I enjoyed all of these books, like, at the end of the day. My favorite of the video, I would probably have to give, honestly, to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I really, really enjoyed this, but One Dark Window, I would say, is a very close second, and I'm excited to continue on with both of these series. I think they're really, really good. I love this series. I know it isn't the most popular on my channel, but I really, really love it. I'm already so excited for the next episode, so stay tuned for that. So if you would like to see that episode or see some of the other content that I do, then I highly recommend for you to subscribe so you can see that stuff. And if you like this video, you can like it. I would really, really appreciate it, because I am an itty bitty tiny channel and literally everything helps me so, so much. And that's it. I had such a good time. So I guess I'm signing off now. Okay, bye.